DB was a student that was at risk of failing that particular grade, and he came across through the assistant principal's office, and they allowed me to counsel him one-on-one or just deal with him like that.
So tell me what happened between you and DB that ultimately led you into prison.
Well, what happened, he asked me for a ride one day from school, and he got permission from his parent, and I took him home from school. And at that time, I made a pass at him because I felt he was vulnerable. And I made a pass at DB, and we had sexual intercourse.
Okay, now you were 25 years old.
Yes, sir.
Were asked by the principal to come to the school to counsel these students.
Yes,
DB were, now, Mr. Willis, I've read all of your statements, and basically from until just this moment, I think, you've always blamed DB as being the one who came on to you, who initiated all of this. Tell me about your health issues. I mean, you know how this all came about, huh? How it got discovered. I mean, he was horribly ill in the hospital. He had all kinds of illnesses as a result of what has been attributed to you giving it to him. What was your medical? I know at some point you had a venereal disease. Did you ever get tested for AIDS or HIV?
Yes, you heard this correctly. This was a man who was volunteering in 3 different schools for troubled kids as a music teacher, as a teacher, as a security guard, and of course, he did the unimaginable, but up for parole after just 7 years. Mr. Marabella does an excellent job, in my opinion. Let's jump in. I'll unpack it with the details.
He has a parole eligibility date of May the 12th of 2021. He has a full term date of September the 16th of 2034. He is currently serving a 20-year sentence on the charge of molestation of a juvenile, having been sentenced on August 1st of 2017. Mr. Willis, is that all accurate? Mr. Willis, your case was assigned to me, so I'll be the one to begin our interview process. Mr. Willis, how old are you?
35.
And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
8 years.
Mr. Willis, tell me a little bit about your educational background. How far did you go to school?
Well, I dropped out actually in the streets at 9th grade when I came to prison. I got a chance to get my high set in 2018. And then I recently enrolled in Ashland University where I'm pursuing my bachelor's in human communication.
Now, let's go back to 2014. What kind of work were you doing back then?
Well, at the time I was working at a funeral home, but I was also volunteering within the school system.
Tell me about your volunteer work within the school system. What did you do within the school system?
Well, underneath Southern University in Shreveport, they had a program where they were launching a community development thing between troubled schools and Southern University in Shreveport. And so they had asked me, because I was kind of big in the community, they asked me to go to certain schools and volunteer. And so at that time, I was.
Let me stop you just for a second. You say you were big in the community. What does that mean? Explain to me what that means.
Oh, well, I was active inside of the church and different small community events within the city of Shreveport.
Okay, and how old were you at that time?
About 25, 26 years old.
And did you have a job? Did you have a full-time job or part-time job? How were you active? Was that just volunteer work, or was that for paid work, or what?
No, so that was volunteer. That was strictly community service, but my living was J.S. Williams Funeral Home.
Okay, so you actually made a living what did you do at the funeral home?
I did first call pickups and dressing and casking, and also funeral attendant.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about your volunteer work. What kind of volunteer work did you do?
Well, I would go into the school systems and kind of help a lot of the school administrators deal with troubled teens because myself, I came from a very troubled background and troubled community. And so I kind of understood how to deal with troubled teens at that particular time.
What was your relationship with Woodlawn School back then?
At that time, I was allowed to come in through Mr. Anthony Tisdale, who was the principal, to come and deal with the at-risk teenagers because their school was a failing school.
Now, did you have a title? Did you have an office there? I mean, were you there on a regular basis, or did you just come in periodically?
I just came in periodically, mainly like 3 or 4 times a week. I didn't have an office or anything like that, just kind of floated around.
And what did you do when you were there? I mean, what was your role as helping the at-risk youth?
Well, I helped more in the discipline sector of the school when kids got in trouble.
And how did you help with that? What sort of things did you do?
Well, at that time, I would kind of sit down and counsel them alongside the assistant principal and talk to their parents and different things like that.
When you say you would counsel them, what do you mean? Did you have any training in counseling, or was it just because you had some street smarts and trying to help them stay on the straight and narrow?
Yes, sir. It was mainly street smarts and just based on failing so much in life. I had that type of experience.
Were you some sort of a security guard there as well? I mean, did you have any other role there at the school other than?
No, sir. No, sir. Well, they used me in the security, but I wasn't hired as security.
What do you mean they used you in a security role? Were you like a security officer there?
No, sir. No, sir. But like when things happen, like fights, different things like that, I would have to report to the city, help break up fights like that.
Now, there's also a program that you talked about, I think you operated called J-Pound. What is that?
Repeat that, sir.
J-Pound? You had a program you operated, J-Pound?
Oh, no, yeah, JPAM was the actual system that the school used to pull up the students' disciplinary records. And so we would use that to give the students a point of where they are at that current moment and where they need to be in order to pass that grade.
And how long had you been, how long did you work with the Woodlawn School, Mr. Teasdale? How long had he had you there?
For 2 years.
Tell me how you came to meet DB.
Well, DB was, yes, sir. DB was a student that was at risk of failing that particular grade. And he came across through the assistant principal's office, and they allowed me to counsel him one-on-one or just deal with him like that.
And when did you first start counseling him?
I think it was 2013, I believe 2013.
Did you know any of his family members?
Not at that time.
So tell me what happened between you and DB that ultimately led you into prison.
Well, what happened, he asked me for a ride one day from school, and he got permission from his parent, and I took him home from school. And at that time, I made a pass at him because I felt he was vulnerable. And I made a pass at DB, and we had sexual intercourse.
Okay, now you were 25 years old.
Yes, sir.
Were asked by the principal to come to the school to counsel these students.
Yes,
DB
sir.
was how old, 16?
Yes, sir.
And you made a pass at him because you knew him or thought him to be vulnerable. Tell me what that means. What did you mean by that?
Well, at that time, I understood that he trusted me, and I took advantage of his trust based on me struggling with my identity.
And so what happened? What did y'all do? How long did y'all?
Sir?
Tell me what all went on. How long did this go on?
This went on for about a year. I would take him home, back and forth from home, because he stayed outside of the school district.
Did anybody else know about this?
Well, now they do since I've been in prison.
I understand that, but at the time.
Oh, no, sir.
Now, Mr. Willis, I've read all of your statements, and basically from until just this moment, I think, you've always blamed DB as being the one who came on to you, who initiated all of this, who kind of found you to be vulnerable, so to speak. Now, is that the position you've had all along? How did that change, and when did that change?
How did that change when I entered into the risk assessment sex offender program here at DCI? And I began to learn some of the 27 risk factors, and they deal with blame. And so it brings you to a reality where you got to understand that there's no way in the world that a 16-year-old could be the aggressor. I had to learn to take the blame and stop trying to justify what I did.
Tell me about your health issues. I mean, you know how this all came about, huh? How it got discovered. I mean, he was horribly ill in the hospital. He had all kinds of illnesses as a result of what has been attributed to you giving it to him. What was your
Yes, sir.
medical? I know at some point you had a venereal disease. Did you ever get tested for AIDS or HIV? Did you ever have any
Yes,
of
sir, I
that?
did. Well, I got tested in April 11th, I think the month of April 2013.
And what was the results?
It was negative. I didn't find out I was positive until October 2014 when I came to prison.
So you did find out at some later point that you were positive.
Yes, sir.
You did know that you had had syphilis previously.
Yes, sir.
Did any of that dawn on you while you were having these relationships with this young man?
No, sir. I was completely no conscious out of my mind. No, sir. I had none.
What is your medical condition now? And how are you physically now?
At this particular moment, I'm undetectable. Take my medicine every day, every afternoon.
What do you think? How do you think what you did affects DB?
I feel like he'll never have a normal life ever again. Never. In fact, I know for a fact he won't have a normal life again. And not only did I affect him, I affected his family, myself and my family, and also the community for those who trusted me.
Now, I believe you indicated that you were going to go back to the funeral business if you were to get out.
Yes, sir.
What kind of work would you expect to do when you're on the outside?
Well, I'll simply be at the funeral home, dealing with the casketing situation when they deliver caskets to the funeral home and funeral attendant.
What are the most significant programs that you've taken? You talked about sex offender treatment. What do you think you've learned the most since you've been in prison?
You know, from the 27 risk factors, one of the most crucial things I learned is that in situations like this, you cannot play the blame game. You have to take responsibility for your actions. No longer try to justify what you did. There's no justification for messing up, especially a young person's life when it comes to sex offenses. Another program that I've taken that has been good for me is the victim's awareness, where I understand the ripple effect. Not only did I affect the victim and myself, but I also affected the victim's family, my family, the community, and all those who trusted me. And that'll take a lifetime to regain their trust.
You're a member of, you're a Pride member,
Yes, sir.
Toastmasters,
Sir?
Toastmasters,
Yes, sir.
member of the
Member of
JCs.
Yes, sir.
You've done a lot of good things while you've been in there, Mr. Willis, I've got to say, I'm very concerned about the effects of your crime on this young man. In the position you were in and the position of trust you had and as you opened up our interview, you knew him to be vulnerable and you made a pass at him. How can I be sure that something like that isn't going to happen again?
I believe now that I've faced the reality of who I am now, and who I was is two totally different people. And now
Who
I
have
have
you yourself to be now? Who are you now?
I'm a man who's honest with myself and my identity. I'm a man who have learned from his mistakes, totally learned from his mistakes, and have lost so much from community connections to family members who no longer really, know me as that fake person I used to be. Now here it is. I'm honest with myself, and I've developed a line of communication with my support system, who now can love me for who I am and support me in my future endeavors.
Did you go to trial or did you plead guilty?
I plead guilty.
And the agreed upon sentence was 20 years?
Yes, sir. 5 of which should be served without possibility of probation or parole.
Do you think crime that you committed, having served 7 years, is sufficient?
As it pertains to the programs I've taken, I've literally exhausted every program within inside of the Department of Public Safety Correction that's demanded of me to be rehabilitated.
What would you say to DB if you had an opportunity to say something to him and to his family?
I would say, first of all, I'm sorry. And I understand that there's nothing I can do to change what happened. Not even heaven has power over that. But I do understand that you'll never, ever have a normal life again because of my irresponsibility. And I took your trust and I balled it up. And I understand that for that, you may be angry with me for the rest of your life. And I can understand that. But I promise you, it was never my intent to destroy your life. And I want to sincerely apologize.
Mr. Willis, explain to me why you were doing this community service. What were you getting out of this community service? Because I think it was a wonderful thing that you were trying to do, but I wonder if you were just preying on people because they were vulnerable. The old proverbial fox in the hen house kind of thing, So what were your thoughts back then as the 25-year-old guy? You just met this young boy and you found him to be vulnerable and boom, you moved in on him.
Yes, sir. Well, at that time, like I said earlier, I didn't really know who I was, but I still had a compassion to help people. And because I understood a lot of the schools that I went to were failing schools, I understand they needed help. And there was nobody else in the community to stand up. Although I was struggling, I still had a heart and compassion to help people avoid some of the mistakes and miseducation that I also experienced. I never graduated high school. So my sole mission was to help other people. At that time, I failed. I honestly failed because I didn't really know who I was, not understanding I cannot help somebody else become who they need to be, except I know who I am.
Well, it concerns me because you just took, and I'm glad you took the sex offender treatment program, but you just finished that program this year. So
Yes,
up until I guess you took that program, you've been blaming that boy.
No, sir. Actually, I started that program in 2018 when I got to Hunt's
I
Correction
understand.
Center.
You finished
Yes,
it
sir.
in too.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but up until then, you kept blaming that boy. He did it. He initiated this. He started all that. How does a 25-year-old man with street sense who wants to help people blame a teenager?
That was a 25-year-old man who was in denial about who he was and his responsibility, and him having to be accountable to people.
Mr. Willis, it sounds like you're moving in the right direction. I appreciate your comments. Warden, what can you tell us about Mr. Willis?
Good afternoon. You touched on his programming and so his record pretty much speaks for itself. His disciplinary in his class speaks for itself.
Thank you, Warden. Now we'll hear from your supporters. Let's hear from your mother, Ms. Capers. Ms. Capers, if you would, please.
Yes. Mario, in visiting Mario and talking with him on a regular basis, he often shared those classes and the things that he's learned. I do believe that he has been and is working on his rehabilitation. He has a host of family and friends that will support him if he's granted parole, that will support him in his continual rehabilitation. I actually have him with a appointment with a counselor. Then we would make sure also that he has whatever he's needing as far as a place to live. He'll be living with me, transportation, and whatever is needed to continue his rehabilitation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Capers. We appreciate your comments. Ms. Rose McCullough.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
Yes, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, ma'am. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing great, doing great.
Why don't you tell us what you want us to know about your friend, Mr. Willis?
Well, actually, Mario shared with you that he worked with the school system, and it was there that I met Mario for the first time. And of course, we worshiped at the same church. So I had an opportunity to observe him for some years. And in observing him, he was a team player. I saw him as being a team player, always helping to make things happen for the school, the community, and government. Very, very hard worker. It's just so happened during Christmas of 2021, I was compelled and unctioned to find Mario because by now I'd really missed him. And I started a search looking for Mario. I started with my former colleague, Sheriff Steve Prater, to see if maybe he was located here in Caddo Parish. And of course, Steve said he didn't have him. Fortunately, I was able to locate and contact and locate and communicate with his mom. And I found Mario. Since then, I have established a bond with Mario's mom, Mario, and I don't know if you all are familiar with his prison ministry. Working with his mom, we've been seeking several agencies, therapists to address any and all behavioral, mental, and medical needs to help him function in society. As a former guidance counselor, I assured his mom that I will be by her side. I've assured Mario that I would be there for him. Currently, as his mother stated, he's scheduled for therapy on October the 28th if he's released. It's been noted, that incarceration rehabilitation is a waste of money. This sometimes will perpetuate the same behavior, but due to stages of development and levels of maturation, there are some experiences of trauma. And this is what concerns me, not just about Mario, but being a teacher, a servant in the community. There are stages of development and levels of maturation in a person's life they have experiences of trauma. And in having those experiences of trauma, let's just say from a child, they never share it with anybody. What happens is that trauma is transferred or inflicted on another human being. I'm sure just by communicating with Mario, he knows he made a mistake. And we all do. Some of us just don't get caught. But it is written, you know, when I was a child, I spake as a child. Now that I've become a man, I put away childish things. And I think based on everything that Mario has brought to the table, you know, all that he's gone through, he know who he is now. He's no longer what I would say that child anymore. He is a man now. Mario was then
I'll let-
25.
You
He's
can
now
wrap it up.
on 40.
2 seconds, okay?
I can't hear you.
If you could wrap it up for us, please. We've got some other speakers that we want to hear.
Okay, so, but I really believe in Mario. I don't condone the behavior. I'm a mother of 3 sons, 44, 40, 38, and a daughter 33. But having served 8 years of a 20-year sentence, 8 representing new beginnings, I'm asking and pleading with the board for mercy on Mario's behalf, allowing him a second chance. There's a great work ahead of him, and with proper supervision, support, and rehabilitation, he can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Suzette Spears.
Hello, I have only known Mario and his mother for a year now. And I've had an opportunity, my husband is also at this meeting. We've had an opportunity to speak with Mario and to get to know the man that he is today. I have worked with him, and he has shared with me some of the things that he wants to do once he is released. I have become very good friends with his mother, and I also pledge to be a part of his support structure when he is released. I do think that he is on the right path, and I do believe that when he is given another opportunity, that he will do as unto God what he is supposed to be doing. And I do believe that he will become a better man with all of the support that he has around him. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Spears. We appreciate your comments. Mr. Willis, is there anything you'd like to say before the panel votes?
I would like to say that I'm no longer the same man I used to be. I've been changed. I can no longer change my past, but I can change the future and help our community be better and help crime prevention.
Thank you, Mr. Willis. Mr. Willis, I appreciate your comments today. You've worked pretty hard, done some good work. You've taken some programs. I think that you've recognized some issues. I'm very pleased to hear you accept responsibility for what you did now. For the longest time, I don't think you did. I think you're moving in the right direction. I still think there's ways for you to go, though. You have a moderate static 99. You have law enforcement opposition. You have victim opposition. The nature of the crime is just horrible. You abused your position of authority. And I think that 7.5 to 8 years or a 20-year sentence is just insufficient at this point. But I do commend you for what you've done. I hope you continue to work as hard as you've worked. And perhaps the next time, if I'm still on this panel, my vote might be different. But today, my vote would be to deny. So good luck, Mr. Rocha.
Mr. Mayor, brother, my vote is the same for the same reasons.
Freeman?
I concur with both of my colleagues, and my vote's the same.
Mr. Willis, we encourage you to continue your hard work. You've got good family support. Perhaps next time might be different, but today is just not the time. Good luck to you, sir. Warden, thank you very much for your help. I think we're finished and we're going to close out.
Yeah, so y'all have a great day. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Take care.
It's really, what did I just watch? This is another one of those cases. This is so sick. And I can't get over it. I have a hard time thinking, what is more broken here? Is it the system that really only gave a man, and we'll get into, I don't want to call him a man, we'll get into how is it more broken that he got a 20-year sentence with possibility of parole after 5, or is it more broken that he has 3 supporters preaching about him in the most disgusting, ignorant ways possible? A teacher, for God's sake. We all do bad. We all make mistakes. It's just we don't get caught. It's like, no. We'll get into the details. Thank you, Richard, for providing it. He was volunteering at 3 schools as a volunteer teacher, as a volunteer music instructor, volunteer mentor. Not because he was trying to give back. It's so clear to anyone with 2 brain cells that he was doing it because he was, as Mr. Mirabella said, the fox in the hen house. He was doing this as an intentional act of being a predator. The idea that they only had 1 victim come forward is just that. If you think that he didn't have more than 1 victim, then you can go join his supporters over there. Mistake. You know, he gave the kid HIV? His victim, syphilis and HIV? You give that to a child and you can get 20 years? As a volunteer, as someone who's put in the school system to support troubled kids? And by the way, he was 14 when it started. Mr. Mirabella made that one mistake of not going through the reports thoroughly enough. It was 16 when it was reported, 14 when it started. 2 years. He was only found out because the child went to the hospital deathly ill and they realized that he had syphilis and HIV. When he was 16, that's when they found out. And the grooming started when he was 13. And do you know what he said? Even down to the final days of his sentencing? He said that the 16-year-old came onto him. He believes that 16-year-olds have consent. And like I said, who am I more disgusted with? The system that only thinks 20 years? 20 years? 20 years? Why don't you go to trial and lock him up for life? What redeeming factor does this monster have? Why would you ever do a plea deal? You have the proof. And is the DA here? No. Do they show up? No. Do they make announcements when the guy's caught? Yeah, sure. They'll be tough on crime. This stuff's not allowed. Literally, someone who sneaks into 3 school districts, mentors troubled kids, sexually assaults them, gives them HIV, and you give him a sentence where he can have parole after 5? And you don't even show up. That's sick. Why is it that I feel that most of us with common sense are as outraged and upset as I am, but those in charge of protecting us, they don't care? And where does that line up? Where does that line up? It's an insult. It's insanity. It's as insane as his 3 supporters in that room. On September 11th, of all dates, 2014, Shreveport police detective Monique Robinson was dispatched to University Health Shreveport in reference to sexual assault complaint by a 16-year-old male identified as DB. Upon arriving at University Health, Shreveport detective Robinson learned that DB had been hospitalized for several days for what his mother believed was a cold and stomach virus. After DB's condition worsened and he was placed in ICU, physicians advised DB and his mother that his condition was a result of being positive for syphilis and HIV. Yeah. And what was it that he even said at his parole hearing? He said that he was struggling with his own identity. That's why he did it, because he was struggling with his identity. Okay, brother. DB disclosed to physician that the only sexual partner he had was Mario T. Willis. So the only sexual partner that he has ever had was his teacher, who was grooming him since the age of 13. A 26-year-old volunteer at DB's school who acted as a mentor towards him. DB told detectives Robinson that his sexual encounters with Willis began when he was 14 years old and occurred approximately 5 times over the course of 2 years. And I have no doubt it was more than 5 times. This is a kid in a hospital who's afraid and probably says a number. That's just my opinion. In a statement to police, Willis admitted to 3 sexual encounters with DB over a period of 6 months. He also admitted to being positive for syphilis and that he was awaiting his test results for HIV. I don't know how you only get 10, 20 years. You have right here that he admits he knows he's positive. Now, isn't that intentional? Like the amount of charges that you could have laid on him would have been enough to lock him up for life. And you give him a plea deal? You have a child that has no sexual partners except for the man who's been assaulting him, who has syphilis and HIV, who has matched his mentor who has syphilis and HIV, who has a confession on record to detectives. Do you need any more points to have a slam dunk case? No, but they still do a plea deal. HIV, okay. Willis was subsequently charged with a bill, molestation of a juvenile. Why is that even it? Why is it only molestation? Why is it not more than that? Why is that the only charge? Over a recurring period of time of more than 1 year. The state alleged Willis molested DB from January 2013 until August of 2014 by use of, among other things, position of control and supervision. On April 28, 2017, pursuant to an agreement with the state, Willis pled guilty to the charge offenses. Both parties agreed to a trial court would impose a sentence cap of 20 years of hard labor. Prior to accepting his guilty plea, the trial court confirmed Willis of his constitutional rights, including the rights of self-incrimination, his rights to confront and cross-examine accusers, and his right by a jury trial. Willis stated he understood his rights and waived them by pleading guilty. Thereafter, a trial court accepted Willis' guilty plea. And in preparation for the PSR report on August 1st, 2017, a sentencing hearing was held. Testimony gathered from multiple witnesses. The state presented testimony of DB's mother and uncle. Willis testified on his behalf and presented the testimony of his mother and pastor. Of course, already we find out that he's a pastor in prison and wants him. It's these type of hearings that just get me sick. After considering the evidence presented, including the PSR report, the trial court sentenced Willis to 20 years of hard labor with 5 first years to be served without benefit of parole. Willis also was introduced to register as a sex offender upon his release on August. And some of this crime happened in some random year that we don't understand. I mean, it happened in 2017. Can you imagine how was this not the biggest news story that ever was? I mean, I do have news clips from Channel 12, but a mentor? No, because they wanted to sweep it under the rug. Everyone wanted to sweep it under the rug and make it go away. And that's why there was no trial. That has to be it. Willis was also introduced to then he filed a motion because it was excessive. Willis now appeals, asserting that the trial court erred in denying his motion to recuse the Cato Parish Sheriff's Attorney's Office because of direct conflict between the office and DB. The trial court erred in denying motion. Such a moron. On October 1st, 2014, a mother filed a civil lawsuit on DB's behalf against Willis and Cato Parish Board for damages arising from the same conduct charged with criminal prosecution. A prosecutor for the Cato Parish Attorney's Office to represent them in the lawsuit. Oh, so that was a conflict because the same for the civil case and for that's interesting. During the pendency of both criminal and civil cases, District Attorney Charles Scott died suddenly. Wow. During the pendency of the cases, District Attorney Charles Scott died suddenly. And Cox, who was the first assistant district attorney, became acting district attorney thereafter. On May 27, 2015, Willis filed a motion to recuse the district attorney's office from his case. As district attorney had a position of interest in the outcome of Willis' criminal case. I hear that. He has a fair point because he was handling their civil lawsuit, which was in conflict with fair and impartial administration of his prosecution. Notably, it does not appear from the record on the trial court rules in the motion. On March 9th, 2017, Willis filed a motion to quash bill of information, arguing that charges against were wrong offense. Willis supported the motion, citing DB's deposition testimony from the civil lawsuit, in which DB stated the sexual encounters between him and Willis did not occur over a period of more than 1 year. March 9th, Willis filed a motion to quash the bill of information. Willis supported the motion, DB's deposition testimony. The civil lawsuit. Okay, so he's saying that DB's, and again, this can be quite, but anyways, who cares if it was a year, more than a year, or less than a year. On April 27, 2017, Willis filed a second motion to recuse the district attorney office, reiterating the argument he made in the first motion to recuse. Additionally, Willis noted that during the deposition taken in the civil lawsuit, Cox elicited testimony from DB that the sexual encounters between him and Willis did not occur over a period of more than 1 year. Willis stated that the elicited testimony was a direct contradiction to the facts alleged by the stated bill of information, although Cox was no longer associated with the district attorney's office. When the second motion to recuse was filed, Willis asserted Cox's prior employment with the district attorney's office. If he's not any longer there, dispute evidence gathered is employed during the time of evidence. A hearing the motion to quash second motion. I am curious about this because to me, it still does seem like a clear conflict. After considering the arguments of the parties, the trial court denied both motions. As it pertains to the motion to recuse, the trial court found that Cox had a personal interest in the conflict with a fair and impartial prosecution of Willis, whose issues was removed from Cox to cease employment with the district attorney's office. Okay, so there you go. So if there was a conflict, there's not anymore because he left the DA's office. Now, what did they win? It doesn't say, huh? Probably settled. Willis argues his 20-year sentence is excessive because the state filed improper charge by alleging the offense occurred during a period of more than 1 year. Willis contends that had the state alleged the offense occurred for a period of less than 1 year, the maximum sentence imposed would only have been 10 years. Wherever they committed a crime, molestation, or juvenile by violating provisions. It's just so stupid. They're pulling up the legislation where it's actually could get without hard labor, not less than 5 no more than 40 years or both. At least 5 years of the sentence shall be imposed without benefit of parole. I don't know why they didn't. This is the perfect example of a case where you lock someone up for life. Really, it is. I mean, where can you get more better than this? Notwithstanding, despite Willis' expression of remorse in his sentence, it is not a purposeless and needless infliction of pain or suffering, nor is it disproportionate of the offense. The trial court placed significance to the devastating health issues, both physically and mentally, DB now suffers and will continue to suffer as a result of Willis' action. The trial court also finds Willis would likely reoffend due to his testimony that minors, 14 and above, could consent to sex with adults, As such, the trial court did not abuse its discretion. Willis to serve just 20 years. Wow, they're so tough. They gave him 20 years. Wow, they're so great. Let's go to this article. Ongoing investigation. This is really early on stages. A local man charged with molestation of juvenile Mario Willis faces serious charges after authorities learned of an alleged sexual relationship between Willis and a male adolescent spanning approximately 2 years. During the investigation probe, the allegations, it was learned that Willis volunteered in a non-teaching role at Cato Parish when an alleged relationship began. Detectives were able to gather secure evidence linking Willis to the teen and appealing to potential victims to come forward with any other information they may have. Willis, following the arrival of Shreveport Tuesday evening, was arrested and booked. And here they go. Here they go with their quote that they can hand out so they can put on the big press release. Cato Parish Public Schools can confirm Mario Willis, who faces charges of indecent behavior with the juvenile, was a volunteer in some schools, said Superintendent. We take very seriously allegations of misconduct with any individuals on our campuses. We'll begin immediately reviewing all policies pertaining to volunteers. Cato School is working in full cooperation with law enforcement. Literally, you send your child to school and they come back like that, and it's just the system failed that child on every level. It's unfathomable. Here's another one. He previously volunteered with music programs to help with school security, as well as work with students in discipline programs, said Mary Wood, the school system spokesman. Detectives were able to gather secure evidence linking Willis to teen appearing potential victims. Yeah, it's a little bit of redundancy now. I just realized I had the page not full view there. But I'm enraged. To me, it's just so disturbing that. But hey, I mean, I'm a broken, recorder here, just repeating the same statement over and over. But this is part of why we do this, because they may have wanted to just sweep it under the rug and make it go away and have it from finding it out to, sentencing him. They probably told him, 5 years, you'll get parole. Well, this hearing took place in 2022. We'll probably see him again this year. I would bet you. And what was interesting, they mentioned Sheriff. And she mentioned her buddy, Sheriff Prater. Well, Sheriff Prater, I highly doubt that Sheriff Prater would have appreciated his name being referenced in this parole case, because he's kind of like a Sheriff Grady type personality. And he is now on the parole board. And I can't wait to see him and to meet him. And maybe, just maybe, he'll be a parole board member when this monster comes up for parole this year, if he does indeed. Thank you, Richard, for the info. And with that, I'll let you go.
Third degree feticide. Tell us what that was.
That was being a girl got into an altercation, and she had lost my baby.
And well, but that okay. So what did you do that caused her to miscarry?
I had grabbed her by a leg and drug her. That's all I did. I never did hit her.
Face down?
Yes, ma'am.
Why did you do that?
Well, at the time, I was drinking and I had got mad.
Yes, and this is just the half of it. His crimes and it's infuriating, but Miss Jackson does a good job interviewing him. So let's jump into the parole hearing and we'll unpack it after.
And you've been in prison for about 3.5 years of that 5-year sentence?
No, 3 years and 9 months.
Okay, all right. The victim in this case was 8 years old and she was accepted. That's correct?
Yes, ma'am.
would you tell the board what you did, to end up with this conviction for illegal behavior?
Yes, ma'am. I was watching porn and I had my genitals out while she was there.
And did you, ask her if she wanted to put her hands around it?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I appreciate you being honest about what happened in the case. I do appreciate that. Why do you think you did that?
Why did I think I did that? Just I wasn't thinking, and
Always say that, but unless we're sleeping, even then we're dreaming. I don't know what the thinking was. You might not have been thinking appropriately, but you were thinking. So what do you think caused you to do that?
I was just watching it and like
Let me ask you this: do you have an addiction to porn? If you have or had an addiction to porn,
no, ma'am.
why were you watching it? You were in a relationship. Why were you watching porn on your phone?
I don't know. I shouldn't have been watching it to begin with.
Or when did you start watching porn?
I was watching it that day.
No. When did you start?
Oh, I started probably about 2 or 3 weeks prior to that.
And what caused you to start watching porn?
I don't know. I just saw it on there, and I just like what I seen.
What do you mean you saw it on there? Saw it on where?
When I started, say that again, ma'am.
You said when you saw it on there, you just started watching. You saw it on where?
On Pornhub.
So you had to go there.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, like it just popped up on your phone, you made a conscious decision to go to a pornography website.
Yes, ma'am.
Was it child pornography?
Nuh-uh. No, ma'am.
Or your victim was 8 years old?
I know, but it wasn't child pornography.
You have prior convictions for distribution of cocaine, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Have a third degree feticide. Tell us what that was.
That was being a girl that got into an altercation, and she had lost my baby.
And well, but that, okay. So what did you do that caused her to miscarry?
I had grabbed her by a leg and drug her. That's all I did. I never did hit her.
Face down?
Yes, ma'am.
Why did you do that?
Well, at the time, I was drinking and I had got mad.
So let's talk about that. What's your history with alcohol and drugs?
Alcohol. I drink alcohol, but I didn't do drugs.
At all?
No, ma'am.
Ever?
Never.
So how often did you drink alcohol?
I drunk it most often.
So are you an alcoholic? Do you consider yourself an alcoholic?
No, ma'am. I can stop drinking alcohol.
How do you know? If you were drinking it all the time, how do you know you can stop?
Because at a point of my life, I just wanted to stop, and I wanted to, get with
And when did you stop using alcohol?
before I come to jail.
Yeah, but weren't you using it when this crime occurred?
Yes, ma'am.
So before you're not drinking it in jail, but when you were out of jail, you were drinking it quite a bit. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So what makes you think you weren't an alcoholic?
Because I didn't drink every day.
When you drank, did you get tipsy or drunk every time you drank?
No, ma'am.
Were you under the influence when you committed this crime?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you taken any kind of programs at all, Mr. Brown, since you've been incarcerated?
Yes, ma'am. I took sex offender classes,
How many phases?
all 4.
Did you learn from that?
I learned that it made me a better person.
I don't want to hear. I said,
Okay.
what you learned in the class?
I learned that you can the do's and don'ts, the risk factors where you
What
want
are,
to get
what are the risk factors? What are some risk factors?
risk factors like blame to make someone you got blame, you got cognitive extortion, you got like masturbation to a deviant fantasy, sexual lapse, and all that stuff there. I learned, all of them in them classes, and I participated.
Glad to hear. What did you learn about controlling your behavior?
About when you stop and don't do it.
If it were that simple, you would have stopped and not did it on the day that you did it. So I'm
Yes.
asking, what specific tools did you learn to help you not do the same thing again? What are some things they taught you to prevent you from, prevent yourself from doing something like this again?
The tools I used was um,
What about not putting yourself in a situation where you would be around or along with juvenile female? That one thing that you were taught not to do?
yes, ma'am, like the high risk situation.
What about the day you got the unlawful presence of a sex offender around the juvenile? You went to the house, the victim was there.
Yes, ma'am.
You were the only one there. So explain to me how that situation happened.
I had went down there to go and I was gonna get my son some clothes for school. And when I went down there, wasn't nobody there. And I was finna get ready to leave. That's when Patrick drove up and he called me down there.
Wait a minute. The victim was at the house, isn't that right? You said nobody was there, but the victim was there.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, and how did you know she was there?
She was in that room and when I went to the door.
How do you know where she was? Did she open the door? Did you go in the house? Tell me what happened.
My son was right there at the door, opening the door, and the room is right here when you open the front door.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you call ahead before you went there? Did you just show up unannounced?
I know I should have called ahead.
Why didn't you? Why would you just show up unannounced? You don't know whether anybody's there. You say you show up and this little girl is there at the house. And she was there by herself until Patrick showed up, right?
Yes, ma'am.
As part of the sex offender treatment, what did you learn about the effect of your behavior on the victim? What did you learn about that?
I learned that I shouldn't be nowhere where I don't supposed to be. I don't need to be around them small kids and stuff. And it showed me that I need to stay away because it's a high risk situation.
Now, my question is, what do you think your actions have done to that little girl? How has what you've done affected her? My interest is not that I'm not interested, but I wasn't asking about what you
Okay.
learned. So I'm asking you, how do you think that affected that little girl, 8 years old?
Well, I don't know. But if I had the chance, I will apologize.
I mean, what do you mean you don't know? They didn't talk to you about how sexual crimes affect the victim?
Yeah, I know it affected them badly.
You can't tell me any specific ways you think it might have affected her?
Would have probably affected her like mentally.
When did you go to Steve Hoyle? Was that when you took sex offender treatment?
Yes, man. I went like it was in 2021 around January, February.
While you were there, you took the sex offender treatment part of it?
Yes, man. I took that. I took anger management and substance.
So what kind of work were you doing back then?
Before I went to Steve Hall,
Prison?
I'm working in the kitchen cooking.
No, you're not listening to my question. What kind of work were you doing before you came to prison?
Oh, I was working at a mechanic shop.
And what do you do where you are right now?
I'm working in the kitchen cooking.
And how long have you been doing that?
I was doing it before I went to Steve Hall. And when I come back, I went right back in the kitchen and I've been doing it since I come back.
Okay. And if you were successful today, what would be your transition plan?
To go back out, to be a better person.
That's
And,
not a plan. What is your plan?
What is my plan when I get out?
Exactly. Right.
Well, first, I want to go and see my parole officer.
Okay.
And I want to take care of my business. I need to take care of like registering, put my
Okay.
name, putting my names in the paper, putting
Right.
the cards out for the community.
Right.
And
Where would you live?
I'll live in Zawali,
With whom?
my brother.
And where would you work?
I'm going back to the same job I was working when I got out, before I came.
What was that?
Mr. David Michelle, the mechanic shop.
Okay, he told you he'd give you your job back?
Yes, ma'am.
What's your relationship with the victim's mother?
She was my girlfriend.
And what's your relationship with her now?
None.
Do you have any children of your own?
Yes, ma'am. I have a little boy.
Is that Patrick?
Nuh-uh.
Okay.
No, I have a little boy. His name Frederick.
And is his mother different from the victim's mother?
No, ma'am.
I mean,
That's his mother too.
oh, so you have a child with the victim's mother, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How old is that child? How old is your son?
10.
You have any contact with him?
So sometimes I'll call my sister and I'll have my sister to call and talk to him for me.
Right. So you and the victim's mom don't communicate with each other anymore?
No, ma'am.
All right, is there anyone in the room with Mr. Brown that can give us any more information about him?
Yes. Hello, how y'all doing?
Sir, would you tell us your name so we can have it for the record?
I'm the chaplain, Anthony Lowe, Senior.
Anything you can tell us about Mr. Brown?
From what I know of him, he's a hard worker. I mean, he's faithful to his job. Everybody get along with him. I mean, it's nothing that he won't do to help anyone here. And I've been counseling with him, and I do feel that he feel bad for what he had done, and but he is a good guy, and I really think that he deserves another chance.
Do you know, and maybe that he's coming in about his disciplinary record at all? Are you aware of his disciplinary record?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any write-ups?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
No.
good.
No, ma'am. He have no right up or whatnot. He come to work every morning, 4 o'clock, and he'll work to about 7 o'clock. He makes sure everything is done, prepared for the next day. I mean, he's a great worker.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
All right.
No, I'm talking about. Mr. Brown, is there a statement you'd like to make to us before we vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I would like to make a statement to the victim and the family that I'm very sorry for what happened. And if I could, I would apologize. And this will never happen again. If I can get another chance, you know, I will make myself a better person. I'm gonna go into church. I'm gonna make sure this don't, be no problem with me no more. And I just thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Me?
No, I said thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Brown, this is a really difficult case anytime, a child is involved with inappropriate sexual activity. It's concerning. What you did traumatized the victim, but you didn't physically touch the victim, and the victim didn't physically touch you, which kind of mitigates the nature of the offense. I'm inclined to grant your early release because of the fact that in a little over a year you were full term out with no supervision whatsoever. You'll have served your sentence. You will still be subject to sex offender registration and notification, but you wouldn't have any kind of supervision. And I'm kind of concerned about the viewing of pornography, whether or not that addictive behavior. And I would like to see you, get some sort of, psychological evaluation,
Yes, ma'am.
whether or not you do have an addiction to pornography, and to follow any kind of treatment that you can. But my vote today would be to take a chance on you, Mr. Brown, to grant your early release with the condition that you undergo a psychological evaluation to determine whether or not you have pornography addiction. Also, even though you say you do drugs, you do have a distribution of cocaine conviction, which, I find it hard to believe that someone is simply selling drugs and not using any drugs. So I would also like to see you attend at least 2 AA or NA meetings per week. I would also order that you have no contact with the 8-year-old victim or then 8-year-old victim in this case. And any contact with her mother regarding the child in common would have to be done through a third party and no direct act by you. So that's my vote. I'm gonna need one vote, Mr. Brown. Mr. O'Shea?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Brown. How are you?
All right, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking. Mr. Brown, I have sat here for the last 15, 20 minutes, listened intently at your interview. And one of the last things you say, give me another chance. I'll do right. You are fifth telling your faith. You pled guilty in May of 2018 to this offense. 3 months later, you were arrested for failure to register as a sex offender. 3 days after that, you were arrested for coming in contact with your original victim. You have a poor supervision history, extensive criminal history. You have multiple sex offenses. The entire legal community, the judge, the DA's office, and law enforcement are strongly opposed to your release. And lastly, you have a moderate risk assessment telling me that you have a moderate chance of reoffending. For all those reasons, I'm going to deny your request.
Mr. Brown, I share all the concerns that have been stated by my colleague. I too would vote to grant your parole because I believe there is a need for some supervision with the term date. And I would also concur with the special conditions by Jackson. So my vote is to grant. But in your case, Mr. Brown, it requires a unanimous vote. So you've gotten 2 favorable, 2 votes to grant, 1 vote to deny. So the outcome of today is that your parole is denied. So good luck to you. That Sabine, I believe. No, I'm sorry, we have one more there. I apologize.
Thank goodness for Mr. O'Shea. Man, I'll tell you, I am going to miss him, and you might as well. There's just something about him, the way that he came in there with a right and a left and a right and a left, just laying down the facts, like reminding us of hello. This man really, it's like his stepdaughter, maybe not by law, but I mean, it's he has it's the half sister of his son. He's a fatherly figure. He he does this offense, which, on the record, they say there's no touching, which, okay, I don't know if I would believe that for a second. And then it seems he doesn't get any type of real sentence because it's 3 months later when he violates for not registering. And then just a few weeks after that, when he shows up at the victim's house when she's alone. Do you have to be, like, completely blind to how crazy that is? Why is he not getting in trouble? Why is he not getting prison time for this? You hear him, the way that he describes what happened when he was charged with 3rd degree, when he basically killed his unborn child, and the way that he describes it was they got in a fight and she lost their baby. I just can't believe what I'm listening to. Miss Jackson did an outstanding, wonderful job interviewing, I thought, a classic Miss Jackson, but then she goes to Grant. I don't get that. The guy took no accountability. Not to mention he lied through the entire thing. Yeah, he just started watching, Pornhub 2 weeks before the act happened. That's when he first started doing it. We got in a fight and she lost my baby. I didn't do anything. All I did was drag her by her feet. Miss Jackson said, "Yeah, while she's on her stomach." Can you imagine the rage that he's in when he's dragging his pregnant girlfriend across the floor so violently that she loses her baby? Now, I don't have any additional information to share on this case, but from what Richard was able to share, he's still locked up. And this hearing took place in 2022, and recording this at the time of 2024. So he's still locked up. Thank goodness. What a scary thing. And to think that he's going to have to now be involved in some way or another with his 8-year-old victim. I just don't. There's certain people that need to be locked up, and he gets felony after felony after felony of violent, dangerous crimes against people and children. Oh man, Mr. Jackson laid down the law. Mr. Jackson, Mr. O'Shea. But I know that I had done this hearing a couple of years ago, but hadn't didn't do it. Doing it again, I really didn't remember how insane it was. Thank you, Richard. Uh, I'll let you go.